Hello, welcome. I'm sure you're not expecting to see a video on our channel on a Friday. Normally, we do our pods on Thursdays, but there's been news that has been widely reported around the footballing world, and it's obviously hits very close home to me personally as a Liverpool fan. So I figured we would just do a quick 15-20 minute reaction to the news that Jurgen Klopp announced today this will be his final season in charge for Liverpool. He'll leave the club after the season's end, moving on somewhere else in the summer. I'm sure he'll take a year off or two. Um, but yeah, it's been a shocking morning to say the least. I have read every opinion and article that I can find just to try to figure out exactly how to feel about it. I think I have a lot of mixed emotions, but um, I haven't seen too many Liverpool fan perspectives yet. So I figured I'll give my own opinion and let the people who follow us at least see it because I know there's probably some expectation from our listeners that I'll give a reaction, especially after I gave Coach a little, you know, tough time about Mourinho finally leaving. So it's only fair that I respond to the bell here and give my thoughts on Klopp before it kind of you know gets moved on to the next news cycle next week. So yeah, it's definitely upsetting news. Jurgen Klopp has been a keystone for the football club for 8 years now, and has really done more for this club in his tenure here than I think pretty much anybody since some of the historic managers in Paisley and Shankly going back decades. So it's certainly tough to see him going on, and there's certainly a lot of concern about what's next. But I think before we get there, I think it's worthwhile to reflect on exactly what he's achieved in his time at Liverpool and really kind of take stock in what that's meant, not necessarily to the club and the fans, but there's also a community aspect to it too that I think can't go uh, untouched. So yeah, he's been in charge now. I think over a little over 8 years. He's got something close to 300 wins, and in that time period, 7 trophies, won a Champions League. Almost more importantly, won a Premier League title for the first time for Liverpool, and countless others, FA Cup, EFL Cup. I mean, he's won every trophy there is, and I think in some ways he still is undervalued as a manager in terms of what he's achieved. Um, Obviously, the results on the pitch have been evidence of just how strong he is in terms of tactics. Even recently, I think there's a stat that this season, in 21 matches, Liverpool substitutes have generated 16 goal contributions, which is pretty crazy. That's a testament to being able to pull the right strings, getting the right guys on the pitch, and you know we've talked about it on the pod. Liverpool is certainly prone to conceding first a lot of times, but they managed to come back time and time again. And so I think a lot of times his achievements as a manager maybe overshadows just how strong he is as a X's and O's manager, as a scheme, as a tactics manager. And I think that's going to be the challenging part. Um, he came in at a time where Liverpool had had some recent success under Brendan Rodgers, really driven by world class play by Luis Suarez and Steven Gerrard. Um, but there really hadn't been a period of sustained success in you know quite a while. And he came in and he said his goal was to turn doubters into believers, and he was going to build slowly and not measure his success after 1 season or 2 seasons, but where they are in 4 seasons or more, which was impressive because I think his first contract was only 3 years. So kudos to him for sneaking that in there. But it was evident, he reached a League Cup final in his first 3 months. I think they lost to Manchester City in penalties, um, and then managed to proceed to a European final by way of one of his signature performances against Borussia Dortmund, his former club, and leading one of those insane comebacks that will be forever etched in Liverpool fans' heads for many years to come. The call of Lovren heading the goal on the cross and getting the 4-3 win to advance. And they ran into a Europa League legend in Sevilla. They managed to win every year, so of course didn't quite get the trophy then either. But I think Liverpool fans knew even that short of a time that there was something special about Klopp, and he was going to be the right guy to take Liverpool back to where they've been for so many years prior to that period where Hicks and Gillett came through and won a Champions League for sure. But that direction where the club was going got pretty dark, and trying to find the next great manager just didn't really work. So I think that patience wasn't really even necessary that he was asking for at the beginning, because he really came in and he put his own footprint on the club. He came in saying he was going to play heavy metal football, and they did. They brought in the pressing and the high intensity pressing. And if you remember watching Liverpool in his first season or two, it was a lot of those heart and mouth 3-2 wins where they weren't necessarily going to be the most, have the most possession or play the most solid defensive game, but they were going to run and they were going to outrun you, and they were going to, score goals as a result. And they managed to pull off more wins than not. And so things progressed from there. Obviously getting into the Champions League, making it to a Champions League final, which, didn't quite go their way. Real Madrid again, no no disrespect to them. They are absolute legends in the Champions League world and have won plenty over the last decade. But that game was another one where it felt like a what coulda, with Salah getting hurt and Karius picking up a concussion presumably in the middle of that game. But that springboard Liverpool to go and get Allison, and I think that's ultimately what led to some of their biggest successes. That following season, and they won the Premier League, and they didn't just win the Premier League, they ran away with it. They were 27-1-1 in their first 29 matches, 2.83 points per match, 9 matches away from probably having the highest points total in Premier League history, and nearly impossible to match. But then COVID hits and things kind of change, and they finished the season, I think 5-2-2 in their last 9 matches. Still decent results, 1.85 points per match, something like that. Enough to win them their first Premier League title, and first Premier League title and first top flight title in decades. Still kind of a what could have been. How many points could they really have put up if that momentum kept going, if they didn't have that weird break, if they could play with fans in the stands? That was around the same time that Liverpool had that incredible unbeaten run at home. And so, yeah, I mean, again, just falling short of maybe getting another accolade that would, forever etch Klopp into the record books. But that kind of felt like a bit of the story of Klopp's tenure here. I mean, you can't talk about Klopp without talking about Pep Guardiola, because those two have been, fixtures in the Premier League in the last decade. And I think coming into Klopp's first season at Liverpool, the record points totals per season were 95 by Chelsea in 2004 and 2005, and then 92 and 91 by Manchester United side, under Sir Alex Ferguson. And in Klopp's time here, he's put up 92 points or more in 3 seasons, and yet still only has the one title to show for it, which is crazy. So again, even though everything he's achieved here is certainly special on its own right and on its own merit, there's a lot that still kind of gets unsaid about exactly how good he's been. And yeah, so I think it's he certainly is going to be missed by Liverpool fans for a long time. I think we've appreciated him while he's been here, which I'm happy about. I certainly remember a moment where I was sitting on my couch watching a game, um, and my wife came in for breakfast. It was a morning game, and she looked at me and said, "You look really calm today, and you're normally not this calm when you're watching your teams play." And I told her, I said, "For the first time in however long I can remember, I've never really had to be worried about Liverpool getting a result because it just kind of happens." And I don't think we'll get that ever again. Maybe, but that's okay. That's a luxury that very, very few fan bases will ever get to, witness, and we got to witness it for a couple years. Um, so yeah, where does Liverpool go next? I'm not super interested in that right now, to be entirely honest with you. There's a lot of manager names getting thrown around. Not really going to be concerned about it. It's not my job. That's something for Fenway Sports Group to figure out. The one I will mention is the one that everybody's going to talk about, Xabi Alonso, and how well he's doing at Bayer Leverkusen and his ties to the club. And yeah, you know, sure, would certainly love to have him, but I think the context that I think Liverpool fans need to remember is it doesn't matter who comes in through this door. They're not going to be Jurgen Klopp. There's probably going to be a bit of a drop off. The players in the squad, the play style that we have are there and in place because of Klopp, and that's going to change. Just is, it's going to change, and it's going to take players a little bit to adapt to it. And some players may not adapt to it. Some guys that are in the squad right now that are playing at a really high level may drop off a bit. It happens. Um, so I think, you know, just having that mindset of, listen, it's going to be a drop off, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's a testament to the fact that we've had a top three manager over the last decade in charge of the club. It's just a side effect of that. So, like I said, not super concerned about who comes in right now. That'll be a question in the summer, and honestly, might even get answered before the summer. I think that's one of the reasons why they're announcing it is they're going to kind of figure that out probably before the summer transfer window. So there's no point in stressing about it. Whoever comes in is going to put on their philosophy. I think the hope is that that philosophy can kind of get bedded in and figured out over the summer, and we don't lose too much ground in that transition time period, because make no mistake, like, this Liverpool club is now set up for the next 5 years to you know challenge for trophies on all levels. They're going to challenge for a trophy in a few weeks in the EFL Cup. They're a few games away from challenging for a trophy in the FA Cup. I think they're league favorites, or they're favorites right now in the Europa League, to challenge for that trophy. And they currently have a 5-point lead over City, for the Premier League, which is crazy to think, because we've talked about how City have struggled this season. They've found themselves in fourth place more often than they found themselves in second place. Their defense has been bad. De Bruyne missed the entire first half of the season. Haaland's foot is hurt. And yet Liverpool, despite the fact that they have just one loss on the season, are 5 points ahead, really potentially only two, because City do have a game in hand. And I think that's just, I mean, it's sums up everything about how good Klopp has had to be in order to get any sort of achievement in this time period. And so he's not afraid of it. No, this is a familiar ground for him. He has to be perfect. He has to get his players bought into every minute of every match from here on out. We all know that City are capable of winning 17 straight games to end a season, and Liverpool scoring 97 or 98 points and coming up 1 point short. That's happened. Um, so in that sense, I do have confidence that Klopp will be the right guy to finish out the season, and make sure that the players stay focused and that they can achieve everything that they can. I would love to see the same base of players continue for the next 4 or 5 years, but Obviously there's going to be some guys leaving. Salah is getting older. Yeah, I hope he sticks around for another couple years that he has on his contract, but who knows? Maybe with Klopp leaving, he does look at maybe moving on in the summer. That was so heavily rumored at the beginning of the season. Van Dijk is getting older, still playing great. Would love to keep him around for another couple of years, but at some point he's going to have to get replaced. So there are going to be changes coming. I think the optimist in me, it says that we do have the core that, a decent manager coming in doesn't have to do too much to continue with, the course that they're on. I think that's kind of like the bittersweet part of Klopp leaving on his own terms is, the good part is we all, don't have to worry about fans turning on him because results have gone slightly out of his hand. Um, but the bitter part is that, you know, we're on a good path now and we really don't need change in the club. But change is going to come. And, hopefully the right guy is put in charge. And like I said, the core is there. They have to imprint their own style that they will and make sure their players buy in. But, they certainly have a pretty solid foundation to go off of. So, yeah, I think that's it. Jurgen Klopp got about 4 months left now on in being in charge of Liverpool. We're gonna enjoy all those 4 months. Whether he achieves something in the form of a trophy or not, I think we're all gonna be very, happy with his time here. And in weird ways, sometimes his biggest achievements are seasons where that don't result in trophies. Like I look back to the season where Liverpool finished in the top 4 despite having Reece Williams and Nat Phillips and Ozan Kabak as their, primary center halves for the second half of the season. Something that I don't think any manager really could do. Um, and so I think in that sense, like Klopp will leave us with plenty of memories. He'll leave us with memories from, the Borussia Dortmund comeback. He'll leave us with arguably the greatest comeback in sport with Barcelona um, in the Champions League. I mean, that's an achievement that is, I think, wholly unique to Jurgen Klopp. I don't think there's any manager in the world that could have done that. Coming back against that Barcelona side without Mohamed Salah, without Roberto Firmino, and getting a 4-0 result in the second leg to advance. So I think I'll spend probably my next 4 months remembering those moments, appreciating them, appreciating the sense of sitting on the couch on a morning, having coffee or breakfast, and not being overly concerned about the result because of how much confidence I had in the manager. And I think when we get closer to the end, when we have hopefully a couple trophies to kind of send Klopp off, I think we can start to, you know, then look ahead. What happens in the summer and what happens after the summer. Until then, I think it's just about enjoying the ride that we have left with Klopp, appreciating that we've had a legendary manager and gotten to witness that for 9 years. Um, and then being prepared to turn the page and um, enjoy the ride that comes afterwards. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Feel free to give feedback. But hopefully we get a nice win against Norwich City on Sunday, and then we'll be back on the podcast on Thursday, and I'm sure Nick and Coach will have their thoughts as well. So until then, you guys enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next week.